Hello Indie Warriors, and welcome to I Dream of Indie Games. My name is Gamer Joe, and today we're taking a very special look at Rusty Rabbit. This is a new Metroidvania action platformer from developer Nitro Plus and publisher NetEase. Now before we dive into all the details about this rascally rabbit of a game, we want to take a moment to thank NetEase for sponsoring this video. As this is sponsored content, this will not be a full review of the game. Rather, it will include some early impressions based on my experience so far. This sponsorship will have no effect on my actual opinions of the game itself, rather I'm letting you know for full transparency. Alright then, with that out of the way, let's get into what Rusty Rabbit is all about. In my intro there, I described Rusty Rabbit as a Metroidvania platformer, and while that's true, it also features elements from many other genres. There's plenty of exploration present, yes, but there are also RPG-like side quests to take on, social interactions, crafting, and a massive focus on narrative, which centers around our lead character, Stamp, an underground excavator, and his mechanical counterpart, known as Junker. The game even flirts with some roguelike elements in its later introduced procedurally generated dungeons. So yeah, there's a lot of ideas going on here. But let's first talk a bit about the premise of Rusty Rabbit. It takes place in a world that has been ravaged by an ice age, where humans have now fled and rabbits run the show. Talk about pulling a rabbit out of your hat. These rabbits are highly intelligent, utilizing technology left behind by the humans in order to adapt and survive. They've built their own villages, machines, and weapons, mainly through gathering materials from ruins known as the Smokestack Mountains. Beaten down by the world and seemingly divorced from his family, our lead character Stamp, an explorer of sorts himself, eventually runs into a group of rabbits that call themselves the BBs, who wish to join up with Stamp to discover the many mysteries and riches that still linger within the mountains. This leads to a greater mystery that will challenge Stamp in ways he wasn't expecting. The narrative in Rusty Rabbit is deeper than you might expect, and tonally a bit all over the place. One thing's for certain, developer Nitro Plus is determined to flesh out the many characters of Rusty Rabbit, along with the world they inhabit, through lots of dialogue. In the opening few hours, the game doesn't shy away from bombarding players with cutscenes and backstory. Literally every few steps within the first hour of gameplay seem to trigger a new scene. While I love some lore and world building in my adventures, I can't say I'm a fan of games that have you watching them more than you're actually playing them. That said, for players uninterested in the story, you do have the option of skipping these scenes and getting right back into the gameplay. And mercifully, this trend doesn't keep up through the duration of Rusty Rabbit. Just be prepared for a slow start. The cutscenes themselves are well directed and fully voiced, with a standout performance from YouTuber and voice actor Yang Ye, who plays Stamp in the English version of the game. Japanese audiences will be treated to Takaya Kuroda. Both of these actors have previously worked on the popular Yakuza series.
What kind of things are they teaching you, kid?
Ye's gruff, solid, snake-like take on the character works pretty well, which is good news considering the surprising amount of focus on character development and plot progression. In fact, I'd say most of the voice performances in Rusty Rabbit were pretty dang good, certainly a cut above your average video game acting. The potentially bad news is that while the voice performances are delivered with great conviction, Rusty Rabbit struggles a bit in deciding whether it wants to fully lean into its edgy adult humor, kinda like, say, a Gex game, or cater towards a younger audience. The game walks a fine line between those two crowds, and the result is something somewhere in between. It's not raunchy enough to be off-putting to a younger crowd, but not adult enough to cater to an older audience. This means that tonally, it's hard to say just who Rusty Rabbit was written for. Even still, I lean towards finding the overall story entertaining at the least, even if I personally wanted a bit more of that 90s attitude that I grew up around. But hey, that's just me. So overall, the game tonally feels somewhere between Conker's Bad Fur Day and Crash Bandicoot, which is, well, a choice. But in truth, I was generally entertained through most scenes just because, again, I really do think the voice actors did a great job with what they had. Getting into the actual gameplay, much of Rusty Rabbit involves you exploring various worlds, crushing boxes with Junker's drill, bashing enemies for experience points to level up with, and discovering new treasures and secrets. Many of the items that you'll collect will be used to upgrade Junker, who can be expanded upon with additional guns, alongside other accessories and abilities. There's a huge upgrade tree in the game that will take a long time to fill out in totality. Junker can learn a good deal of new abilities that range from being able to jump higher, move quicker, and he'll even eventually fire off a grappling hook. The moment-to-moment gameplay is quite simple. You have a traditional Metroidvania map to explore, enemies to defeat, waypoints to reach, and loot to collect. The game is littered with plenty of fast travel points that make getting around a breeze. Fast travel and exploration are pretty basic, yes, but where players might struggle a bit more is with getting a grasp on the feel of Rusty Rabbit. Considering that you are in a mech the vast majority of the time, the developers have opted to try and capture the feel of what it would be like to move in a massive machine, and that's met with mixed results. The game has a weighted feel to it that took me a good deal of time to adjust to. Junker isn't the most responsive mech I've piloted, to say the least. His jumping doesn't feel as good as it should, his gunshots can take some awkward trajectories if you're not careful, and generally speaking, the combat itself lacks any real depth. Early battles mostly consist of drilling away at enemies close range, being careful not to get too close to them, as your health bar will disappear in an instant. That happened to me a few times, but at least you respawn pretty close to where you've died. Initially, I didn't find the combat all that fun or engaging, to be honest, but things do improve as you unlock secondary weapons for Junker, mainly guns that allow you to strike foes from a distance. The game's lack of finesse isn't necessarily a deal breaker, as it doesn't exactly require precision platforming or deep combat mechanics to begin with, but of course, I would have loved it if a bit more attention had been paid to tightening up these loose bolts. In my time with the game, I did come across one boss battle which had me utilizing a portal to bounce between different sides of the screen, and here we see a bit more creativity out of the combat that I'm hoping the later game has more of. So all told, Rusty Rabbit is playable in terms of its general movement and combat system, but it's really not all that refined. Control issues aside, I honestly had the most fun in the game's hub world, a small village that Stamp is free to explore. Here he can perform various upgrades using collected junk. He can go to church to learn more about the world and backstory of the game, flirt with the locals at a cafe to build relationships and form bonds, visit a bar, and buy new weapons and consumables. Consumables are especially important in the early going, as again, enemies can kick your booty by simply standing close to you. Even with all of the issues I mentioned, I can't deny that the cycle of exploring, gathering loot, going back to your base, and growing stronger works to some effect, and that Rusty Rabbit has a lot of neat ideas. Some of them are more half-baked than others, sure, but its ambition for a smaller release is commendable. Maybe a bit too ambitious at times, but the parts that work well, and the parts that don't, well, they don't. But for me, the strongest aspect of the game was the addictive nature of loot gathering and building new parts. While there is a main plotline to be followed, optional procedurally generated dungeons will also become available, which allow for Stamp and Junker to gather even more materials. These areas come with a significant difficulty spike, but will net you rare items and a healthy helping of currency. I'd say that overall, I enjoyed these dungeons more than the mainline areas of the game. There's also no shortage of side quests available, many of which you'll be able to complete for even further rewards through natural gameplay progression. So while there's a lot of moving parts to Rusty Rabbit, pun fully intended, the game does a nice job of introducing its mechanics slowly so as to not overwhelm players. You'll be able to grasp everything it throws your way, it's more a matter of if you'll be a fan of all of these different concepts. As far as the visuals are concerned, Rusty Rabbit looks solid. While the dungeons are nothing to write home about, the character models are very, very impressive. Not only are the rabbits adorable, but they look great, by far the standout visual aspect of the entire package. The game features plenty of graphical options on the PC version too, including ray tracing if you wish to enhance the visuals further. While the enemy designs that I encountered were a bit drab in comparison to the charm and character put into the lead cast, I'd say generally speaking, I liked the presentation of the game. Its maps are easy enough to understand, the text is nice and clear to read, and the menu design is clean and efficient. So overall, Rusty Rabbit is a pretty good looking game. Maybe it's the sound design that surprised me the most, however.
Stranger each area gets. What even is this place? Let's do this. You hear something?
I already touched on the great voice performances, but the soundtrack itself features hard-hitting electronic beats and pulsing synths that had me bobbing my head like a madman. Seriously, the music in this game is unexpectedly good. After around 4 hours of gameplay, I can say with confidence that Rusty Rabbit is one of the strangest gameplay experiences I've had in quite some time. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. While its long-winded story segments and less than conventional fusion of gameplay ideas might not be for everyone, I did eventually get hooked into its core gameplay loop. Going off and collecting junk to grow your mech stronger is inherently fun, even if I wish mechanically the game had nailed down some more of the fundamentals. Even with its flaws, I look forward to diving deeper into the game's many dungeons. Those procedurally generated areas thus far seem the most interesting, so I suspect that's where I'll be spending a good deal of my time. So all told, this mix of many different concepts might sound a little crazy on paper, and it is, but there's a lot to like about Rusty Rabbit. Plus, the rabbits are really freaking cute, even if the game never quite settles on what kind of tone it should carry throughout. I'd say if you enjoy more casual Metroidvania exploration, you like crafting, gathering loot, and you're up for some light RPG mechanics, consider giving Rusty Rabbit a look. Once you get a handle on things, there's some good fun to be had, and again, there's just nothing quite like it. Both casual players and more hardcore gamers should find plenty of tutorials and deep systems throughout that make the game playable for both audiences. Rusty Rabbit is available as of April 17th, and it can be purchased for $19.99 here in North America. Once again, a very special thank you to NetEase for sponsoring this video, and a big thank you to all of you for watching. I'll see you on the channel for even more indie game impressions alongside all of our reviews, lists, and so much more. Voice to the voiceless. For far too long, you, the gamer, have been denied honest gaming coverage. Indie developers and publishers have lost their voice, but no longer. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and head over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames to join this epic campaign for indie visibility. The echo chamber trembles as our message grows louder. Voice to the voiceless.